Good morning, everyone, members of the committee. Go ahead and call this Governmental Affairs meeting to order. And we have a relatively busy agenda, so we'll try to move through it as quickly as possible. I think we have the room for an hour. Chairman Fleming is going to open us up with an invocation, please, sir.
Please bow your heads with me. Lord, we pause now as this meeting begins to ask you to help us. There is a busy time for us here, and as always, we need your wisdom to know what is best to do for the state of Georgia. Thank you for all the blessings that we do have, Lord. There is, as we all know, sickness and illness upon us, and we ask that your healing hand be upon those in those situations. Thank you for all that we have. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chairman Fleming. Members of the committee, thank you for being here today. There is a sign-up sheet available. Okay, put it over here. If anybody wishes to have anything specific to say, normally in committee we do not hear testimony other than from the committee members, but today there are a couple of pieces of legislation that we are hearing extemporaneously because of the time and the nature of crossover being tomorrow. So if we have time, we will try to hear what we can. First bill today is by Representative Rutledge, HB 854. Representative Rutledge. Would you read the LC number? We do have a substitute, and
Right.
this was passed previously, but I think we've made some adjustments there and
We have.
brought forward a little different version.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Working on LC 470511S. Is that what everyone has? Basically, what I just want to thank the committee and chairman for working through the process and trying to get this as a good piece of legislation, and especially Scott Turner and Ledge Council for indulging me with this measure. But basically what we've done is alarm systems are already codified in law. And that's what this alarm system is. It's a alarm system fence with the latest technology. And since it's already in code, we're just asking local governments to treat it as such. And we do need to, we discovered in line 15, we do need to add a friendly amendment there to codify that this is only for commercial industrial properties. And that's the only change that we need to be made on the bill.
Jot that down. Do we have any questions for the author? Representative Rutledge, just to kind of clarify, I think what we've done is we've changed some definitions, and you've had a chance to engage with GMA and ACCG, and they're both, while had reservations about the prior version, they're very comfortable with this this version of the bill and what it does.
I'm confident that they will see it as such.
Well, I've had discussions with both, and they have expressed, that they are supportive of this direction, and I think we're just changing definitions, and
Correct.
it makes a lot of sense. So
Correct.
thank you for working on this, and
And again, I appreciate you guys too as well.
yes, sir. So if Chair will entertain a motion. We have. We will. We have a motion and we have a second. Now we would entertain a motion to amend. We have a motion and a second to amend. Can you read that amendment for us? You have that?
Yes, sir. On line
Stuart.
15, in between the words fence and surrounded, add on a commercial or industrial zone property.
All right. We have a motion and a second on that amendment. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, on the original motion do pass. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry,
Leader
Mr.
Trammell.
Chairman. I just didn't push my button fast enough, but it's more of just a question about the reference in the code section cross-reference in 27 and 28. Just hadn't been fast enough to look that up on my phone. Can you tell me what that code cross-reference is?
It's just a definition in the low voltage electrical engineering code about what an alarm system is, and it's pretty much any electronic system that sends a notice to a monitoring system. So like a fire alarm, burglar alarm, any automatic electric system that sends a notice to a monitoring center that can be sent out.
Satisfy you. Is that Representative Wynn?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This button wasn't working earlier. I did have a question, Representative. Does this conflict with any existing code that any county or municipality has on the books right now?
I wouldn't think so, not as an alarm system.
Okay. So then, if you can clarify for me, for example, I know in Cairo, there's a provision that prohibits electrical fences as it pertains to agriculture. So would this override that provision, or?
No, not with the amendment we
Okay.
just made.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh, do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Chairman Fleming.
In Cairo?
Oh, make a lot of syrup down there. All right, all those in favor, please signify by stating aye. Those opposed? Bill passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Representative Rutledge. Chairman Lumsden, House Bill 962. Floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you House Bill 962, substitute working from LC 460317S. This deals with the Department of Administrative Services and their ability to enter contracts for things that they purchase. As you are all probably well aware, Department of Administrative Services purchases a broad array of things that we use all throughout government. They have contracts with different entities that provide that for them. Line 11 of the bill simply strikes private nonprofit and replaces it with cooperative purchasing organizations. All this is doing is broadening the ability of providers to participate in the bidding process with DOAS, and it opens up some markets. We have had some who have been nonprofits in the past and have changed their status from nonprofit because of a tax consideration to profit, but they still want to be able to compete in the marketplace. So all this does is open it up and enables them to be able to, it's just a free market approach to opening it up to more people to participate in the bidding process.
Thank you, Chairman. Are there any questions of the author? Representative Oliver.
Can you reassure me that we're not eliminating anybody from the opportunity? Because I don't know what a definition in the code of cooperative purchasing is, and somewhere there's a definition of nonprofit. So a private nonprofit is defined how, that is included or excluded from cooperative purchasing.
Right. It's my understanding that this simply opens it up to everyone. It does not exclude nonprofits. It simply opens it up to other entities that may be a for-profit, but it's just providing the opportunity for more people to participate in that bidding process.
So we're not aware of any definitional sections anywhere?
No, ma'am. I'm sure that there is no conflict there.
Representative Wynn, I'm trying to manage this mic situation. Representative Wynn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. That was actually a concern that I brought up earlier, and there was some work to amend it to make sure that it was more expansive and not exclusive. And Ledge Council amended to use the word cooperative purchasing because it was different before then. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for that.
Thank you.
Any further questions of the author?
At the appropriate time.
Looks like it is the appropriate time, Madam Chair.
To move to pass.
We have a motion to pass. Is there, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Bill passes. Thank you
you.
very much, Mr. Chairman. Next order of business is House Bill 973, Representative Paris. And we are working, you have a substitute in your folder. Thank you, Madam Representative. The floor is yours. Let me get your mic working here. There you go.
Good, okay. Thank you all for hearing this substitute today. Initially, I was aiming to get Juneteenth as a state holiday, but we realized that the fiscal note would just completely make it where it was impossible to do, and we didn't want to put that burden on the taxpayers. The substitute LC 500081S aims to designate Juneteenth in Georgia in recognition of the events that occurred on June 19, 1865, celebrating the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of slavery in the United States. The reason it's important is because the President signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. It took 2.5 years for the people in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, and California to get the message, because they didn't have Twitter and, social media back then. It took them 2.5 years to find out that they were actually freed. And so when the message was delivered to them by one of the generals, they were, all released, and the end of the tragedy of slavery in America finally came to an end. So that is what this bill aims to do, to get the state of Georgia to officially recognize today.
Appreciate you bringing the bill.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the author? Any comments? Well, hearing none, we'll entertain a motion. We have a motion to pass, and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by stating aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very good. Congratulations, you're on the rules.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much,
Thank
Chairman.
you, Representative
Thank you,
Paris. Let's see. Okay, House Bill 1058, Chair Lady Silcox.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you all hearing this bill this morning. I do want to introduce briefly Harold Hirschberg, who's here with me with the Israeli Consulate. Appreciate him coming down this morning to join us. I do bring this bill really in the interest of the state and really their relationship with the state of Israel. And that really is the purpose of this legislation, is to encourage companies that do business with the state of Georgia to do so in a manner that they do not boycott Israel. And so this legislation was originally passed in 2016 by this body. And we have had some issues on a small scale with this, and so the Israeli consulate and a number of people have asked me to raise the limits. The only changes in the language are on the second page. If you're looking at the LC 412462S, and it eliminates at lines 27 and 29 the word individual. And it raises the contract limit so that it's contracts with a total value of less than $100,000. It shall not apply to contracts with a total value of less than $100,000. So those are the changes. Would be glad to answer any questions.
Are there any questions, the author? Chairman Fleming.
Representative, I
Mhm.
believe Representative Walensky was an original sponsor on this bill with you. Isn't that correct?
He signed the bill with me.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just not reflected because it's a substitute.
Correct. Mhm.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Who is,
It was me.
oh, sorry.
Hey, thank you.
Representative Gullett?
Just have a quick question. So, and I know we've talked about this a lot. I just never actually heard the reasoning. So, $1,000 did seem low. 100,000 to me seems highish. Why $100,000 versus somewhere in the middle of that? You know, was
Sure.
what gets that
I
number?
did consult with the Attorney General on this, and these changes were modeled after the changes they made in Arizona. And so the Attorney General is good with this, and he's good with the changes per the Arizona law.
So Arizona has 100,000.
They do.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any more buttons lit up, so Chair will entertain a motion to pass. Do pass. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
I have one no. Thank you,
Thank
Chair
you.
Lady Silcox.
Thank you very much.
On the rules. All right, we do have a couple of bills that are not on the agenda to be heard today. First off, House Bill 955 was heard in subcommittee, and Chairman Efstration is here to discuss House Bill 955. And I just before we I think jump into this, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, been an awful lot of work in the last couple of days looking at this and trying to answer an awful lot of questions regarding certain parts of this. And I do want to thank you for your willingness to engage in those discussions and all the stakeholders that I know many or if not all are in this room. So please proceed. I know we do have some things that we've talked about prior to, and we'll kind of let that unfold as you present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before we kick off, I want to make sure
Yes,
that we have
yes.
the same. Yeah, it's LC 338371S. So it
We're
should be-
passing that out, Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Tell you what's interesting, if I might just take the floor for a second, is that this is really. I know we've had some discussions whereby this has been kind of a almost good and bad kind of thing, but I've really seen in the discussions that I've had some very sincere good and good, or good versus good, and so. Thank you again. I think everybody has a copy.
Yes, sir. So I know that we went over this extensively in the Powell subcommittee, and the subcommittee heard testimony. So maybe what I'll do is just give a brief overview, and certainly if any members want to drill down into any of the language, I'm happy to go into it. But this bill was brought with the intention of making clear that Georgia seeks to protect its senior citizens and those who receive treatment and care in nursing homes or care in personal care homes. And there are three major components that you will see to the bill. I'd characterize three silos. The first is that the legislation makes clear that reporting in circumstances of abuse when it's known is to be made, and it moves existing elder care protections, so criminal offenses for failure to report elder care, to Title 16, which is the criminal code, so it's a lot clearer for prosecutors, and also enhances the penalty from a misdemeanor to a high and aggravated misdemeanor. The second part of the bill is making clear in the code that intentional abuse of elderly people is a felony, and that is done by striking inconsistent misdemeanor language from other parts of the code. So, for instance, there's an enhancement to the simple battery offense if the victim is 65 or older, and that's removed so that prosecutors will just be able to proceed under the more appropriate criminal offense. And the final component is a reporting requirement if there is a death under certain specific circumstances, which are provided in the bill, and a reporting requirement to coroners. There also is some language accompanying that was received after the bill was introduced, which has been incorporated into this bill, that provides circumstances if the coroner fails to come within a certain period of time, what the home may do. And so those are the major components of the bill. Chairman Blackman, you made pointed out some language confusion on one of the lines, which is addressed in this substitute. Otherwise, this is the same substitute that your subcommittee heard before Chairman Powell before. So that I'll just draw your attention to on lines 153 to 154. There's just some confusion in the wording there, which I believe we've cleared up thanks to Legislative Counsel. There were also two questions that were really raised in the Powell subcommittee, which I received some instruction on to get back to the committee about. And the first was unintentional additional coverage of matters that already were to be reported to coroners. And did this new language as far as a reporting requirement just rehash what is already in the code. And so I have a letter, Mr. Chairman, if it's all right to pass around. This is just an email from the Prosecuting Attorney's Counsel prosecutor who's present in this room today, William Johnson, who provides his comments, and the letter speaks for itself, but I believe the committee members will see it's a belief that this is not unnecessary language. The language that's included in here is because it's truly needed to capture circumstances that, if observable, that if there are clear indications that the death occurred because of one of these circumstances, we don't have coverage for that in existing law to require that reporting. All right, the other direction that I was given from the subcommittee chairman was to engage the coroners to see how the coroners felt about the bill. And I had an opportunity to speak with, I'm not sure if we have coroners here today, but in the interest of making sure that I had the information for the hearing and in speaking with Chairman Powell to make sure this was okay, I have letters from coroners expressing their support for House Bill 955, if I could pass that around as well. And the objective here is to just document and show the support for the bill as presented to you. And we have attempted to engage coroners from throughout Georgia. So you'll see we have a coroner from Banks County, coroner from Richmond County in Augusta, Stevens County, and Liberty County, so throughout the state. And as I mentioned before, I'm just giving a brief overview at this point in time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions, would ask for your favorable consideration of this substitute to House Bill 955.
Thank you, Chairman Efstration. And just before we move into any further questions, for those that were not at the meeting that we held on Tuesday, it went on quite some time. We heard a great deal of testimony, and one of the recommendations from Chairman Powell was for you and I and Representative Williams to discuss some of the questions that came up in that subcommittee hearing. And we did very much that. Would you agree? And we came up with some language, having talked to some of the other stakeholders, that would be more universally accepted and would hopefully get this bill into a format that answered some of those questions. But we continued to get more questions as the questions got answered. And as we tweaked certain parts of the bill, it became less and less viable from a number of different fronts. Questions that were associated with, the untreated wound and the definition of that, the 10-day period, and the way medication is dosed wrongly and otherwise. We had some questions on the high and aggravated versus misdemeanor that was brought up. We had some questions as to the reporting and what's going on there, and is the reporting answer to the coroner the right thing, or is there actually so much reporting going on that we are in fact finding it detrimental to getting to the cases that need the most attention? So, you know, as we meandered through that, and I guess we all get the opportunity to reflect on situations that have impacted us personally, and certainly not to make this about me, but have had several loved ones that have passed in the last few years and have been subject to long-term care. And, you know, I think during this process, welcome, Representative Williams, during this process, I know that we have heard a lot of great testimony. And Ms. Floyd, I want to thank you once again. You know, want you on my side when we're arguing something in the future. I think we even heard along those lines, just to jump back real quick, from one of the other testimonies, that the reporting that was going on, the people that were doing it right, it was getting done right, and that the stuff that was not the bad actors were out there, and this was intended to catch the bad actors. And I agree with that. We need to absolutely catch, and we need to make sure that any abuse is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But getting back to my thoughts regarding like my own personal situation, and I've heard this from other members, we have some amazing people, some wonderful people that take care of our family members, and you know, I can't thank them enough for what they've done. So again, I go back to this. We've had a little bit of a good versus bad, but there's a lot of good versus good on this, and I think there's a lot of good to come of it, because I know that I've had people working with family members of mine that have treated the elderly members of my family like family, and they do an incredible job. But again, as these questions arose, there were certain sections of this bill that seemed to jump out. We couldn't quite get to where we needed to get. I know you presented your bill as it is. I did want to offer up to the committee a way forward, that we could vote on a substitute that Molly's going to hand out right now that would capture several sections of the bill. We also I have also asked Legislative Counsel so that we do get all of the questions answered, and we don't leave any unintended consequences out there, to draft a resolution that would put together a study committee that would further investigate what seems to be the more questionable and you know, frankly, controversial part of this bill regarding unintended consequences, and that's mostly the coroner piece. With that, we will take questions of the author or of what the substitute is. It is the first 5 sections of the bill, with the changes under misdemeanor included that were requested by DCH. Chairman Lumsden.
I noticed in lines 28, we struck against a person who is 65 years of age or older, but on line 3, we still have a reference to the age. Is there any particular reason?
That's from the original bill, Chairman. Do you?
So I don't see the inconsistency with that. The of course, the caption's not what we're putting in code, but but forgive me if this doesn't answer your question, but currently the offense of simple battery has an enhanced punishment if the victim is 65 or older, and there's elsewhere in the code we have elder abuse, same type of conduct, which is a felony. So to just make it clear, we're striking the enhancement from simple battery so that law enforcement can just prosecute the more serious offense. Does that answer your question?
Chairman Fleming.
Thank you, Chairman. Illustration, and if I think I understood your last comment, was that when we reference a crime twice in the code, sometimes that can cause confusion for those trying to carry out the law and prosecute, and it's clearer when we put it in one place, cover everything we need to there, and take other areas out, because it leaves open the question, why is it in there twice? Does one mean something that the other one does not? Is that fair?
Yes, sir. And to take that one step further without going into the total lawyer discussion here, there's also something called the rule of lenity, which means if there's another criminal offense that has a lesser punishment, that law would actually require that the lesser offense, or the lesser sentence, I should say, be followed by the court.
So that wasn't actually my question, but I tagged along on the last response. Thank you. My question relates to what the chairman referenced, and that is, it seems, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but the first portion of the bill, which our prosecutors have asked for to help them go after people who abuse elderly, I don't think there's a lot of concern about that. I think most people appear to agree with that. The questions come in about the reporting section with the coroners, and I have not been able to follow this bill in subcommittee. I've been at one meeting but not the other, and I apologize for that. So forgive me if my question is redundant. But I am getting mixed information that coroners already have to report these matters. And I guess my question would go to, just like we talked about not having something be required twice in criminal law because sometimes it can create confusion. Why are we putting it here again, or am I wrong that they're not already required to make certain reports?
So the opinion of the prosecutors is that it is not duplicative what we're requesting here to be added. So if I could just draw your attention to Section 7 of your bill, 7 of the bill, Mr. Chairman, and if you just follow along with me here, these are the circumstances in which a report to a coroner must be made under existing law. And so you can see here, and Representative Williams, maybe he stepped out, but Representative Williams actually read this to the subcommittee when we were in subcommittee previously. So you can see these circumstances when a report must be made. And the addition, the underlying language, it's the opinion of the prosecutors. Ms. Johnson's present if you'd like to hear testimony on it, but it's the opinion of the prosecutors. This is not duplicative, that if signs of death along these lines are noted, that a report should be made to the coroner under those circumstances. Now, I will just, in response to the chairman's opening statement, Chairman Blackman and I have had extensive conversations about this since subcommittee, and it is, I want to be clear, Chairman Blackman has been working in good faith to try to get the best possible policy on this and has worked extensively to try to find what that language might entail, which includes a discussion about the Medicaid. There was discussion at subcommittee about what's now line 155 about the dosage issue, how exactly that could be noted, and also the 163 to 165, the untreated wounds. And that's been a great deal of discussion. The thing I'll just mention is the bill is introduced at untreated wounds or conditions, and a concern was expressed to me that conditions was too broad, so we struck that. And then we needed a definition for wound, because what does that mean? And the Prosecuting Attorney's Council assisted us with that language. That's how we landed here. Are there circumstances where maybe there is a wound or an injury that that is certainly not the result of abuse? Absolutely, I acknowledge that. And that's, I think, why we wanted to really focus on the untreated aspect of that. But I very much appreciate the discussions that we've had about trying to perfect this language in that regard. And the final thing I'll mention is there has also been talk about a coroner training requirement, which I'll just mention that that's not included in this draft, but that language has been recommended to me, and we worked with with the Prosecuting Attorney's Council to discuss if that training is something that they could provide, and if it could be provided through an online means so there wouldn't be a cost associated with travel. And if you ask them, I expect they will say that they are able to provide 10 hours of training along the lines of assisting coroners to make proper, well-informed decisions in these difficult situations, so that reporting is only done when it's necessary and appropriate to do so.
Is this you, Representative Oliver?
Thank you, Chairman Administration, for your work and everybody's work on this. It's very important. I'm playing catch-up here, too, because I'm on the other subcommittee. The substitute that Chairman Blackman has handed out, LC 47051-8S contains exactly what your substitute 1 through 5 contains and eliminates the rest of the bill. Am I reading this correctly, just looking at it quickly?
That's my understanding. I don't have it in front of me, but that's my understanding. Thank you.
And
You
the
didn't get a copy?
No, I'm sorry, I did. I just didn't look down. I'm sorry.
so I'm taking from that elimination of the requirement of reporting to the coroner. Is it that you felt like there was too much difficulty in clarifying that to move forward, and with that you're accepting that that's going to be delayed to another day, or do you want me to launch into why it's necessary?
I believe it's necessary, and I have worked to have language that I think would be acceptable in that regard, and that would be effectively on the incorrect medication. It'd be exceedingly incorrect, I actually have it with me, exceedingly incorrect administration of medication. And on the wounds, I don't have a definition to propose here other than the one in the bill, but I'm happy to work with stakeholders to try to capture the true definition there. Now that is balanced with the fact that it's the day before crossover, and I would prefer for a bill to move forward than a bill to die. And I'm sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. There is one other change in the substitute, and that is the criminal offense is now a misdemeanor rather than a high and aggravated misdemeanor, and we heard testimony from the Department of Community Health that they would prefer it to be a misdemeanor at subcommittee. And it's my understanding the prosecutors don't have an objection to it, but certainly we were trying to send a message about how serious this is when we
And that was
introduced it that
true
way.
of your substitute and the chairman's substitute.
It's not. It's still high and aggravated in my substitute.
Right,
Yep.
right. I happen to have had a ward who was died based on being locked out of his assisted living group home, and there was a immediate report and in fact a trial and a murder conviction for exposure to weather. So it's one of the reasons I drew my attention to this. I think there's been a lot of I'm comfortable with whatever decision you wish to make on moving the bill forward without the reporting sections, but I do believe that that's a discussion I'd like to continue in some way, perhaps if we are successful in getting this bill through the House.
That's your study committee, right?
And hence, hopefully that's where the study committee and the resolution there would take us, and that we would have some more time to dive into this. And it's a serious issue, relatively new to me, and coming to Governmental Affairs, it was a lot to explore, but we can't afford not to get it right for all the stakeholders involved. Thank you, Representative Oliver. Chairman Lumsden, did you have another question? Representative Wynn, did you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman, under Section 3 with the reporting requirements, this is something that I think you and I have discussed, as well as Chair Cooper. In terms of mandatory reporting, what's the understanding of why people might not report? Is there a fear of retaliation from employers? Is there an environmental concern in which, if we are making it criminal to not file a report, is it also prudent to protect the person who is reporting from any kind of retaliation that might come down the pipeline?
I haven't heard testimony about that specific point. I will just say that we've talked a lot today about the coroner requirement, and what's important is if we have Georgians who are living and are subject to abuse, that reports are made so that those individuals can be protected and action can be taken.
I agree with that. I just want to make sure that if we are to make it a criminal offense, that we also put safeguards in place to where individuals don't have fear of reporting, which I think was brought up during the larger package reform that Chairman Cooper passed out. Is that something that we could discuss offline?
I would be happy to discuss that with you and maybe get some additional information or case examples. The Prosecuting Attorney's Council has been very helpful in providing specific case examples that have been helpful to understand the issue here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Representative Williams.
Thank you. So I just want to be sure I understand. So if we move forward with the sub that was just handed out to us, there will be no reporting to the coroners of any of these things like that are in the bill. I mean,
Well,
okay.
Not the trying to get the bill to move forward with the sections that have consensus, and then I think you walked in late, but I have
know. Yes, sir.
proposed, and this would happen obviously after crossover, but I just received the draft that would create a House Study Committee on reporting practices on deaths and injuries occurring in compensated care facilities, et cetera, et cetera. Try to work on this to get it right and be able to make sure that we get all the questions answered. You and I went over a bunch of them yesterday, Representative Williams, and I understand your passion for the issue, and I greatly appreciate all of your work on this. It's been enlightening for me, and I've tried to play catch up as best I can.
I appreciate it, and I very much appreciate your willingness to have long conversations about this. I just want to go on record as saying I'm deeply disappointed that we are removing this section of the bill. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Do you have a question, Chairman Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I look at the Chairman Administration substitute on page 5 under section 7, beginning with line 153, these would be the issues that would be added where reporting would be necessary: exposure to weather, drowning, asphyxiation, trauma, burns, electrical shock, etc. Those all look like to me suspicious reasons. However, if you look at the current law, which is also under section 7 on line 143, one of the times that a coroner is supposed to report is in any suspicious death. So the concept that we don't have a requirement already for suspicious deaths to be investigated, whether they happen in a nursing home or anywhere else, I think should be highlighted. In other words, if the chairman's substitute passes, we still have a requirement of coroners to investigate suspicious deaths by the plain language of the statute as I read it. So this idea that we get this particular and detailed reporting right by doing it through a study committee is attractive to me, so that we can make sure that the language on line 143 is in no way has an unexpected consequence of what we put in line 153 and down. Now, once again, I've missed a subcommittee or two on this, and I'm trying to bring all this together in mind. I'm willing to be corrected, but that's how I read it.
Yeah, I agree with Chairman Fleming that we want to get this right. We want to make sure we're real specific on this. But I will just highlight to everyone that deaths might otherwise be characterized as, well, they're advanced in age, whereas there was abuse that caused this ultimate cause of death. So what might not otherwise seem suspicious, in fact, is suspicious, and that's the basis for this discussion that we're having. And so an example would be drowning or asphyxiation. Maybe that's on food or drink. Maybe that's on circumstances that would be outside of what you would commonly think is an extraordinary suspicious circumstances. And so I'm very grateful for the discussion that we're having. I am cognizant of the fact it's the day before crossover day. I think it's important that a bill be passed this year, and that we get the bill as right as possible. And so I appreciate the committee's consideration of this.
Well, But before, I know we have two other questions, but we're running short on time. This room, we have a couple of other things to address. Yes, ma'am. Chair Lady Taylor.
Thank you. I think we all want to make sure we get it right. One of the things that bothers me a little bit is a personal issue that happened with us. My had a loved one in a nursing home, and she ended up with she was immobile, she had Alzheimer's, fractured femur. So the first thing we did was get our hair on fire. What have they done? She was immobile. It turned out that she had bone cancer. And look at how it would have inflamed the community against this place who did nothing wrong. So I think we have to be cognizant of both sides and make sure that we do this right. And she did pass, but it was of cancer later. And again, I just don't want to jump the gun and get something wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Leader Trammell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be as succinct as I can, but I just want to say that I place great weight on the opinion of Mr. Johnson from the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia. As I read this and understand it, says that under present law, under OCGA 31-10-15, that persons attended by a physician, then the physician has to sign off without review of the coroner, and that deaths in compensated care facilities are considered attended deaths. And what that means is that coroners do not have to investigate, because automatically, if a death occurs there, it's considered an attended death. And if we kick this can down the road, will be another year without the ability to make sure that these suspicious deaths get investigated by a coroner. That's my 2 cents. And like I said, I place great weight on that opinion. I appreciate Chairman Efstration for bringing that to our attention.
I want to say, I know Representative Rick Williams has left, but you probably, Leader Trammell, missed some of his testimony or questions and testimony in subcommittee the other day. And I think he spoke somewhat to that a lot of the reporting does make it to the coroner, but they can be backlogged, and it may be some time before they actually get to a suspicious situation. And again, I'm not an attorney, I'm not law enforcement, but another discussion that we probably, would benefit from having. Last question, Representative Turner.
The last subcommittee hearing, Chairman Powell had asked us if there was anything that we wanted to hear or anybody we wanted to hear from, or anybody or additional information that we wanted. And I specifically asked for coroner's input. And I'm guessing that he has provided us with this packet. Here.
Three letters from coroners, yes, sir.
Plus one from the Prosecuting Attorneys Council.
Four coroner letters.
Four coroner's letters and okay.
4, I'm sorry.
Every single one of them are saying the same thing, that they support it as Chairman Efstration has brought it. They outline concerns with the way the status quo is laid out, and they're asking for this ability. I just wanted to point that out, and I know I walked in late too, but and I want to thank the chairman for taking the step to make sure we had this.
Thank you. Well, I would ask the chairman Efstration, if he is willing to move this forward in the capacity in which this sub lays out, and continue the discussions forward with the pursuit of the study committee, the chair will entertain a motion to do so.
I'm interested in this bill moving forward, Mr. Chairman, and so with that understanding, I intend to continue to work on this issue as it progresses forward, and I will certainly support the study committee, and we'll continue to work on this in the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before the committee is the committee substitute House Bill 955 LC 470518S is the version before this committee, and the chair will entertain a motion to pass. Motion do pass and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify. Oh, we do have further discussion.
Mr.
Leader
Chairman,
Trammell, I'll come back to you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move an amendment.
Would you state your amendment?
Amendment would be to replace LC 470518S with the substitute LC 338371S.
All right, we have a motion to amend with substitute. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion along those lines? Chairman Fleming?
I didn't have discussion until Leader Trammell's proposed amendment. I simply pressed my button to be recognized because after what Chairman Efstration said about wanting to move the bill forward and being willing to do that with the chairman's substitute, I was going to make that motion after hearing that from Chairman Efstration. So now my comment would be that if we accept and vote for the minority leader's amendment, we're not moving ahead with the chairman's substitute. And so I would ask the committee to vote against the minority leader's amendment, and that will bring us back to the chairman's substitute so we can pass it out.
I'm sorry, Representative Shannon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question because I wasn't in the subcommittee on either of these. What is the difference for if somebody knows about elderly abuse and does not report it? What is the penalty in the original bill that Representative Efstration brought, and what is the penalty in this one? Like, what's the difference of penalty if you know about elderly abuse and you don't report it?
Oh, there is no difference between the two in that particular section.
They're both misdemeanors?
There is.
The high and aggravated, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes, that was part of the substitute we discussed that we did not present. Is that right, Chairman Efstration? Yes, we incorporated that, based it on the request of DCH.
So it's not in either of these? It's just a regular misdemeanor in both?
No, the version that we are voting on, the original motion, does have that in there. It does have that removed.
Okay.
As per the request via testimony of DCH on Tuesday.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the amendment. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? All right, motion is defeated. All those in favor of the original motion on Bill LC 955 LC 470518S, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Thank you very much. Chairman Efstration, did we lose you? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. All right. Senate Bill 322. I don't see anybody in here to use this next. Yes, Chairman Ginn, we're going to hand out copies of your bill. I know I was in committee the other day when they asked me if I could do it in 5 minutes, I hate to ask that of you, but would you please present your bill, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Going to ask some of my friends from the city of Atlanta to come give me technical help because I'm not the attorney in the room. So I'll ask Ms. Sanders and others to step forward.
This is a first hearing. I just want to say real quick that you've been incredibly patient and have asked to hear this for a couple of weeks now, and I wanted to give you the courtesy of this first hearing, and I appreciate your understanding and patience with all the House bills we're dealing with at present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your hospitality and the committee's indulgence in this. Basically, this is a great bill. I chair the Economic Development and Tourism Committee over in the Senate. Everybody in here knows that we're at 3% unemployment in our state. For me, the problem is that a lot of communities have issues providing affordable housing to people that come in and work for a living. So for me, this bill will allow for, I believe there's 18 communities in Georgia that currently have an impact fee, and this allows them to waive that impact fee for affordable housing projects. So when we look, one of the things that in the discussion of this, the home builders, the only thing that they requested, they said, hey, just make sure we're not passing the buck to the other people that are paying the impact fee. So if you look at the bottom of the language, said the down on the lower portion of lines 23 and on down, said you'll see that this bill doesn't do anything but just says, hey, we can exempt impact fees for these communities, and they can do that if they choose. They don't have to, but if they choose, the local going back to local control. So I hope I made it in under 4 minutes. And if you have any questions, I have a great team behind me.
Does anybody have a word of test? Oh, you have a question, Madam Chair?
Good, because I was going to talk with you a little bit later about maybe carrying it.
Thank you. I want to make sure, does this have anything to do with plan design and local control of the government to do that?
Not at all. Said the only thing this bill deals with is impact fees, and I'm a 20 years suffering, recovering, said the city and county manager. So I think y'all know. Yes, thank you. Said the Mr. Chairman, I know you know firsthand about some of that. So,
yes, sir. We've had a chance to discuss it, and I look forward to further discussions. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard briefly on this, City of Atlanta? Or
this bill passed 54-1. Said you always have that one. My dad always told me as a kid growing up, there's always one in a bad apple in there somewhere. But 54-1 in the Senate. Said and you know, I've had great support from everybody, from ACCG, GMA, the home builders, the realtors. You know, they all look at this as a good thing, and it is a pro-business, pro-local government, pro-local control bill. So I'll ask for y'all's favorable consideration.
Thank you. We'll have. Oh, you have a question? Sure.
Senator, how you doing? Oh.
Go ahead, Representative
Senator, how
Jones.
you doing? Real quick, I know we're about to adjourn in 30 seconds, but I'd love to chat with you about the idea that if we use fourth industrial revolution type technology like 3D printing for affordable housing, what kind of incentive could we actually be looking at? So just not how can we take out the impact fees, but let's incent and work with our developers to let's move on to the 2020s. And I think that opportunity exists with your bill. So thank you for bringing it.
I'm happy to work with you on that, but it's not part of, we don't care how the widget's made. We just want to make the widget so people can live in an affordable place.
Chairman, I appreciate your willingness to work with us. I know the other thing that came up when you and I talked is how do we, properly incentivize rehabilitation or revitalization efforts, in regards to, these kinds of abatements. But the discussion will continue. I thank you for being here this morning and appreciate your presentation, sir.
One of the things I might note is if you're rehabilitating something that was commercial office space or something like that to this, that would be very appropriate for this. So if you're going from an older housing unit to a newer housing unit, because those people are already there, revitalization probably is not going to be one that would be charging an impact fee. But if you are putting in residential units where, let's say Ponce City Market decided, hey, we're gonna put all kind of apartments in here. Guess what? Said they're going to pay an impact fee. And to me, we got to have people that can work in this state and improve our things, but we got to have a place for them to live. So this is where this bill really helps. And I appreciate y'all's consideration. And if you wanted to, you could vote today. I just let the chairman discretion.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you, Chairman. We will get to it first of next week.
Thank you very much,
yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all hearing me.
Thank you. Is Representative Glanton still with us? Yes. If you put all those tax dollars, if you put all the tax subsidies into it. He's not there. Okay. Well, we did vote on his measure on Tuesday and passed out a subcommittee, and I know he wanted to be heard for a couple of minutes, but I would just say that I think this has enhanced some of the dialogue between the Clayton County and the City of Atlanta, and certainly appreciate both parties willing to have those discussions. We have worked on some language that would adjust the bill, and we may continue those discussions for a future date. But is there anything further from the members of the committee? Hearing none, thank you all very much. We stand adjourned.